Hi, often when I've been asked what is the best data analysis method are available, my answer would be right away, what type of data do you have? So most people struggling in answering these questions because of the confusion they have on what we mean by the question, what is the type of data? And also struggling in answering this question because of the confusion they have on what is the data characteristic is really, which we mean what is the difference between the data structure and unstructured data. So if we going to help on clarifying this misconception, if we going to describe the difference between structured and unstructured data, then we can easily answer the main question of what is the best data analysis method available. So let's start. Now, before we dwell or dig into the difference between the structured and unstructured data, the problem of understanding the data in general. People think only the data can only the data have been saved on table that is data. Unfortunately, most people misunderstand that anything can be saved on a device. This can be called data. Anything you can see on this slide, whether article, image, email, audio or video, or any type of file format being saved on your PC or device, that it's data. So if we agree to this term, then we can move forward or further toward the difference between structured and unstructured data. So obviously when we save data on our devices, they only saved on two types. Either they will be numeric, obviously, or they've been saved as non-numeric. These are the list or the main difference between the numeric type or non-numeric with their subcategories. Please feel free to look at them. I will move forward to the difference between or the facts that are available or people quite often skip when they decide to choose what data analysis method they have. So people think only the information that's saved on a table, whether in a number fashion or text fashion or whatever, they think this is all the data and this is what we can call it data. Also, people think data are equal, which is the opposite really. So now if we agree on the term of the characteristic of the data, only two types, structured or unstructured, then we can agree that anything saved on data only can fall into this category. Anything can save on devices can fall only onto these categories. So these categories or these forms result of human or machine saved the data on devices. The other fact is really important to mention, that 80% of the data today is unstructured data. And also the structured data is the data easily can be organized on the database fashion, similar to this information available on a spreadsheet. Also can be found on a stock information, can be also found on the geolocation table, on this table. So these are classified structured data. So how this data being generated, or where this data came from? This data came from either from human being or human generated data, or can be from machine data generated. So the example we've seen earlier, it's the human data generated. The machine data generated example can be such as the data from medical devices. Also, another example of the machine data generated can be from web server. And if we take this into detail, we can see these are some examples of how we can what we expected to see in web server. Look, for example, data can be saved by machine on this server, such as how many customers rated our product. Also, we can think of how many visitors visit our website and how long they stayed on our page, and as well as from where these access came from, what type of IP address we can see on this log, which is determined the location of the person, where are they coming from. So simply, any dataset saved on structured data similar to this example can be classified as structured data. So the final thing we can talk about on a structured data that really quite often you find it highly organized and quite easily can be analyzed, and any data mining tools or any machine language can easily interpret it or explain this data or analyze this data. So it easily can be understood by any machine learning. We can simply use Excel, Microsoft Excel tools to analyze our data. We can also use advanced languages such as structured query language, SQL, that allowed us to create query and even manipulate the data even further. So this is example of SQL script, which is allowed you to organize your data and find results from data being stored in your table. I'm sure you are familiar with this. Now, the second type of unstructured data, that everything that is not in data. Example of that, any data, say any data being saved on a file format such as PDF, any audio files or video files, and many examples such as the email that contain different type of file being saved in a social media. You can easily find some tweet or some post created with images or video. You can also find online surveys, and also you can find the review of product by customers saved on organization website. All these basically unstructured data. Can we analyze this unstructured data with the popular software such as the Excel? Can we analyze unstructured data with R? It's not really straightforward, and if we can structure the unstructured data, manipulate this data or reorganize it, yes we can, but unstructured data is not really easy. Data can be analyzed. Now, if we think about the method available to analyze this data, so unstructured data most often categorized as a qualitative data method or qualitative data type. What they really mean that it's data can be only analyzed with the qualitative data method. If you see the example on the left side here, we can only answer these questions with the other text answer, so we cannot really answer the question by giving numeric response. So we cannot say this bookcase made of 100. The only answer here can be this data made of food. And also the other example of quantitative data answers would be this bookcase has a smooth finish, or it's a deep brown. So these are the answers we expect once we analyze unstructured data. So as I said, the data here only can be used to ask the question of why. The opposite, the structured data, is the simple, easy type of data we can organize. Simply we can use the quantitative data method. On the left side of this screen you can see the example of the same previous example we use for qualitative method. So the answer would be numeric. So if we ask, is the bookcase 3 feet tall, the answer would be yes, it is 3 feet tall. How many shelves this bookcase has? We can say has 3 shelves. So the structured data, the type of data we expect it to see, is the measurement or the measure using number and values. If we remember the second slide of this presentation, we have categorized the data in 2 types, numeric and non-numeric. And the first type of the data was numeric, and it has discrete and continuous. For example, if I say how much money do you have in your pocket, you could say 100 pound. That means discrete. Or you could say, if I asked you what is your height, so you can say I am 1 meter and 88 centimeter high, so that means continuous. And we can also classify the weather as a continuous data, numeric. Okay, so these data can be analyzed with the use of quantitative and remember structured data. So which is really, now we go back to the main questions or the theme of this presentation. The aim of this presentation was what is data or which is the best data analysis method are available. People also ask another question, which is data is better for analysis. Really, it depends on how the data being stored. So if you have data unstructured, then use quantitative data analysis method, which is more complicated than the structured data. That use the quantitative method. On the right side we can see any business data analysis mining tools can help you to answer these questions. Now if we take them individually side by side, if we think about quantitative method, the structured data, the easiest one, it can be organized and easily searchable. So within the relation data you can find someone ID by their ID or by even their department. You can find anyone who assigned to that department. So very simply we can say quantitative data or structured data is the easiest, but not is the best or better way of analysis, because what kind of answer you're going to get from this data? Simply is the answer already you know. And the unstructured data, which is the social media information, emails, data heading within the data, that is the more data which is now can be classified as big data. So these data or this information really hard to work with, and they are called unstructured data, and they need quantitative data method. And Excel or R or Python cannot be easy, or not easy. You can use these data, upload them, and simply analyze them. Absolutely, that is not correct. We will explain this in the next slide. However, the most data and structures you can find, always you find behind it some valuable information. Trying to make sense, or making sense of these data, can be really time consuming. As I said, if you're trying to structure unstructured data, if you're trying to save these unstructured data in table fashion or on a data spreadsheet, it takes time. Really, it's not straightforward. It's expensive, and although there are some of method that of structured data can help you to structure this unstructured data. I found this diagram or graph which help to put all these together, type of data. If you have, you can then easily classify which is data you have, characteristic data you have, and also you can see the level of difficulties of each type of them, which is also we add more layer on it. Is it external or internal? So for example, if you have your HR record, this is if it was saved in a table format fashion, then it's structured, and if it's internally, it will be a little bit difficult than the external data, because the internal data is categorized. The internal structure data is the category best understood by the enterprise. So let's say, for example, if you give me your HR record and you ask me to analyze this data, I might struggle because some field or some column that's been saved with a specific heading or topic that doesn't make any sense for me. Is really more difficult than external data, which is credit history being saved in a table. Of course, you have the same main words used on that table: travel history, real estate record. So the most easiest data to use is the structure external data, and the most difficult data that we can analyze is the unstructured data, which is fall into internal data. So the internal unstructured data is the prime learning ground for the enterprise to understand how to mine value from these data format. So if you are really looking for valuable data, then this is where you find the most information, valuable information. It's the other way we can see it's your treasure. So how will we know now the difference? Simply, the qualitative data analysis is the unstructured data, which cannot be analyzed using the conventional method. Finding insight within the unstructured data is really not easy task. It requires advanced analytic people or highly skillful technical expertise to really make a difference. These data, as we know, categorized or generated through the text document, can be generated through the audio or video recording, images, interview, and so on. While the quantitative data analysis is the structured data, is the easiest organized data. Its most common example of structure which is saved on numeric. The value found can be found in a spreadsheet. These data generated by either human or by machine, and the data through the test, experiment, survey, market report, or matrices. Now, to conclude this presentation, I can leave you with this diagram, which is explain the main differences between structured and unstructured data, and also the main differences between them, which is on the left side. You can find the structured data easily to display, to save, and most likely have numeric and number data and strings. Only 20% of nowadays enterprise data generated, 20% of them only generated these days, while the opposite, unstructured data, can consume 80% of the estimated enterprise data gathered. Now, very important things we need also to mention, that the unstructured data require more storage. You cannot have control on which type of data you're going to have unless if you plan in advance, but most organizations, they have really the mix of structure and unstructured, and once they open to the social media, and once they open to save data from their own enterprise website, collecting the customer review, then they will end up with unstructured data, which is require more storages. The structured data is easier to manage and protect, while the unstructured data is more difficult to manage. So this is the references or the resources you can refer to read more about them. I hope you learned something useful today. I wish you a very nice time, and please, if you have any questions, send it to the comment below. Thank you for listening.